Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more particularly from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. Welcome. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can communicate with me directly by typing your questions or comments into whatever platform you may happen to be watching on, and they will appear here in my chat room, and we can talk directly. And I very much enjoy that aspect of this particular program. I've done a lot of programs over the years, but I find that immediacy of contact to be very gratifying here. And I hope you're having a lovely week. As you know, the last few days I have been running a best of Midday with Reverend Don. Hello to Janet in the chat room. Good to see you, Janet. And that's because I had gone to Nashville Pagan Pride Day. And I was on the road and then in Nashville. It was a lovely event, and I want to talk a little bit about that today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about pagan pride in general and how do we improve the perception of our community, the acceptance of our community in the wider world. Hello to Renee in the chat room. You'll notice I injured my hand on the trip. I have no idea how that happened. It was very weird. Hello to Lynn on the chat room. Hello to Mary in the chat room. And Mary is the organizer of Nashville Pagan Pride, along with Lucia Jameson. And it was a wonderful event. Could not have enjoyed it more. Well, maybe if it were a couple of degrees warmer, but it is October. But it was a beautiful day, beautiful sunshiny day. Lots of good people, lots of good workshops. I did my workshop on media and the pagan community and how to use media to advance the community, which I feel I have done a lot of in my lifetime. And the main ritual was a beautiful experience. Last year, the main ritual was planting a new ritual tree in the park. This year, we met under the tree and had a lovely Mabon ritual. It was very beautiful, and I really had a wonderful time. Got to see lots of people that I've known for many years and meet other people that I have not. And I want to thank Mary for bringing me in for that, and hopefully I can be there again next year. I want to talk a little bit about why I think pagan pride is important. Not in the sense of being proud to be pagan, of course that's important, but in the sense of the event of Pagan Pride Days. And here are some of the reasons that they're very important. Firstly, they're non-political. Everyone comes together equally. It's a public outreach event. And I found that the best thing for our communities are this kind of event that is not political. It is a social gathering, a public outreach gathering, an ecumenical gathering. They give us a wonderful chance to come together in all of our different groups, all of our different traditions, on an equal footing, and everybody gets along. It's very good for the community. But because it's a public event, and usually held in spaces where the public can easily attend, and people often show up who didn't even realize that it was going to be there, I think is very good for exposing the wider world to the best aspects of the pagan community. Hello to Tom in the chat room. It's good to see you, Tom. And I think that's a very valuable service. At Pagan Pride, I think we really tend to show. Hello to Ravenwolf in the chat room. Good to see you, Ravenwolf. I think that we tend to show our best selves. Our merchants are on hand. Our groups are on hand. Everybody is in a good mood and getting along. And it really is a very uplifting experience, at least all those that I've attended. And similar events like the St. Louis Pagan Picnic, which is not a pagan pride event, but follows very much a similar model. It's a very good way to reach the public, a very good way to affect how they see us. Um, the idea of what has become the Pagan Pride and other similar events started out with the Pagan Expos in Chicago. And the Pagan Expos were meant to be exactly what they sound like. They were a public outreach event intended to promote local groups and also to promote the local merchants in acknowledgement of the fact that the merchants were one of the major backbones of the Chicago community. Um, I assume that's true for most communities, but it certainly was true for Chicago in the 90s and early 2000s. The bookstores and other pagan businesses supported so much of what was happening in the community in various ways. Sometimes by providing space for it to happen, sometimes by providing financial support for it to happen, sometimes by distributing um, items that could be used as door prizes and the like in things like witches' balls, and certainly by carrying literature. Um, the local businesses are often one of the main ways the community stays in touch, certainly before the internet took over, but I think even now it's still important. And one of the purposes of the Pagan Expos was to give those businesses um, a further push and also to let people who might not otherwise encounter them find out about them. And that too for the groups. And so all of these different outreach events, what they have in common by being so very public, by being held in um, such public places, they allow people who might be curious about paganism to come in and find out in a low pressure sort of way that asks nothing of them, but offers them exposure to the community that they might not otherwise have. I think that's very important because a lot of people have an interest in our community, but they're afraid because they don't actually know anything yet. They're afraid of like going to a strange bookstore or a ritual event, and so it's very good for them to have these kinds of low pressure places they can come. Another thing, it's like a mini festival. It's a good place for people to come who are part of the pagan community, but not necessarily part of any one particular group or tradition, to come and see everyone, to come and have a chance to take part in workshops and presentations and see all the merchants and do many of the things that we would normally do at a festival, but without having to leave the urban area, which they might not be able to do for various reasons. Maybe they can't afford to go to a festival. Maybe they have physical disabilities that make it difficult to do that sort of thing. This brings it to them. But most importantly, I think, is that it provides these same things to people who don't even know they're curious and maybe will have their very first exposure to the pagan community at this event. And another great event scheduled along several or along similar lines is Witches Fest USA in New York City, which is described as a street fair. And that's just what it is. It's on a major street in downtown Manhattan. And people walk through this street and walk through Witches Fest USA who had no idea it was going to be there. They just normally walk down that street. I'm sure there are people who come to um, Nashville Pagan Pride and other pagan prides who um, had no knowledge of the pagan community, happened to see that it was happening, happened to be at the park that it's happening in, if it's happening in a park, um, or happened to see it at some other venue they regularly go to and just decide to give it a shot to just see what's there. And I think that's a very valuable service to the community, a very valuable way of exposing a wider number of people to our pagan community. And again, at its best, um, because you can see maybe not everything that's in a given community at your local pagan pride, but you'll see a wide range. Um, it's not like if you go to any one temple, it's like seeing them all at once. Now, of course, there are those who don't take part. But of those who do, I mean, you'll find Wiccan temples, you'll find heathen groups, you'll find ceremonial groups, you can find all kinds of different groups at these events. Groups like the Fellowship of Isis, letting you know that they're there, what they do, how to contact them. Um, you know, back at I often make fun of that meme that goes around talking about how people back in the day would have been horrified to know you could get your sage at Whole Foods. And I point out that having been there back in the day, I can tell you that's not true at all. They'd have been thrilled. And they'd have been thrilled by this too. Back in the day, what kind of witch or metaphysician you became largely depended on what group was near you and if you could find it. You didn't have the choice of going through all these different options. Even if they were in your area, you might not be able to find them. Today, that's very different, and I think that's better for everyone. Um, I think that it really is kind of a smorgasbord of the gods. And hello to Michael in the chat room. It's good to see you, Michael. And um, you can see everything that's there. Back in the day, it just wasn't like that. Even relatively late in the day, it wasn't like that. Um, Today it is. And I think that's a huge benefit to the people who are looking to find their path today, um, who now have all these choices before them, all of these possibilities that we, their ancestors, did not have. And I think that makes for a much more diverse community. And I think ultimately a better community because, you know, not everyone is suited for every single path. That's why, my opinion is that's why there are so many, why we have so many options so that we can find what is right for us. Um, and it may not be what's right for someone else. In my case, I was very fortunate. I was born into the family that founded the path that I follow. And I never really had to look for a path the way that many people do. But that doesn't mean that I didn't spend some time looking. The way that I was raised, before actually being initiated, I was encouraged to look at every path to see what else was out there to make an actual decision. And I was also encouraged to keep looking afterwards because as a Corellian, I can add whatever I wish to add to my life. It's not an exclusive tradition. And so, you know, years after um, my Corellian initiation, I became involved in the Fellowship of Isis, for example, which fit me very well. Um, if Corellianism had not existed, I would undoubtedly have been primarily an Icean. Um, and that was not a problem with the tradition that I belonged to, nor with the fellowship. I believe all of whose members mostly have multiple affiliations. But, you know, it would have been so nice if I could have seen that earlier in life. It would have been so nice. Although, granted, growing up in Danville, Illinois, there wouldn't have been a local Icean temple to be coming out to the local Pagan Pride Day. Not at that time. But I think that if my generation had had the resources this present generation has, things would have been much better for us. I think if things like Magic TV and Pagan World TV had been there, it would have been a very different and much less lonely path because even working with others in those days, you felt very isolated. Um, I think that our pagan TV stations have really brought the pagan world together in some ways. to be able to see what else is out there, to be able to take part vicariously in events, I think is very good for our wider community. And hello to Brenda in the chat room. I wanted to talk a little bit also about how we use media um, to advance our community. And I have been talking about that just now. But what else do these things have in common? I always tell people, if you do not like the way you're being portrayed um, by Hollywood, by the news, by whatever, your best answer to this is to start portraying yourself. Show yourself the way you want to be seen. And I think that Pagan Pride and these other events, such as Witches Fest USA and the St. Louis Pagan Picnic, that follow similar formats, really do that for us as a community. I think that things like Magic TV and Pagan World TV do that for us as a community. And I think that this is, as the culture wars and the wider culture continue to accelerate, I think this is more important than ever. Not only is it important in helping our own people to know the diversity of our community, what all is out there, and how they can find it, but it's also important in letting that wider community know that we are here and we're not here um, being boogeymen, that we're people following a slightly different religious and philosophical path, but in other ways, not really very different from themselves. And I think that now more than ever, this is an important thing for us to be sharing with the world. I I think it's very important. I think it's important for us to do this and to be serious about it. I saw a comment the other day, and how should I approach this comment? It was a question about, is your organization woman led? Um, and as the commentary continued, one of the things that was brought out is that Mary says that Hella, the dog, is listening to me and she thinks that she misses me. Aw, hello, Hella. Hella is a wonderful dog. Um, and a comment was made about the dominance of certain male voices. I have to tell you, I've been doing video like this on an almost daily basis since 2010. Um, the people who speak this way are making a major commitment that not everybody wants to make. Not everybody can do video every day. Not everyone feels comfortable doing it, though I'll tell you, if you start, you'll come to feel comfortable doing it. Um, but in terms of who becomes those voices the public hears, the answer is it's not like there's some third party choosing them. It's the people who come forward and do it. I would love to see, and we're starting to see lots more women doing regular programming. But I would love to see still more. Um, but as for why my own voice has been very prominent, it's because I did it. Um, and all of us who who are in a position where we are, for want of a better way to put it, representing to the wider world, are doing so not because we were necessarily chosen by someone else, but because we stepped up and picked up that camera and that microphone. And I would like to encourage you, whoever you are, whoever is listening, if you have any interest, consider doing this yourself. If you go back and look at my early vlogs from 2010, you can see that although I had had already quite a bit of video experience, you can see the difference. And you'll have that same difference happen with you. The more you do this, the more comfortable you become. Prior to that, I had mostly done scripted video or interviews. And you can see plenty of older things from me before that, such as the interactive grimoire. We did 4 of those, totally scripted. Um, but learning to speak just directly to people through a camera, which is what I'm doing now, basically is something you get through practice. There is very little you can do before you start, other than just talking to people on a regular basis that's going to build that skill. Um, Even then, it's not just like talking to people in ordinary life, because all I'm seeing is a screen of myself and a chat room. I can't see people's facial reactions, for example. And Raven Wolf, who does a lot of videos as well, said it took me months to become comfortable. And I remember being scared of camera work. And now I do it professionally. And that's exactly what you experience yourself. When you begin, you might be a little afraid of it. You may think your voice sounds funny. And that's because you'll be hearing it recorded the way that other people hear it, possibly for the first time in your life. Because when we hear it normally through our ears, we're hearing it from a different angle. So, yes, your voice may sound different to you. Um, your face may seem different to you seeing it on camera. What I do, what I've always done, when I do editing, for example, when I do video, I don't see myself in the video. I imagine it as if it were a different person. I imagine it um, as if it were an actor, for one of a better way to put it. And then I can approach it and say, well, is this a good camera angle? Is this a good presentation? Not how do I look on screen? Because, even everybody, even people who are perceived as conventionally attractive, have all kinds of hangups about their appearance. It's just part of being human. And so naturally, when you start to see yourself doing camera work, you may have some hesitation, but you can go back and read about famous Hollywood actors who couldn't stand to see themselves on film because they couldn't gain that distance. Um, my recommendation, like I say, is imagine it's someone else. How would you feel about the video if it wasn't you? And I think that takes a lot of pressure off. And don't expect to be perfect. I still frequently am umming all over the place, or hemming and hawing or what have you, but I don't let it stop me. I'd have to say, I've often been asked for advice on leadership, advice on things like public speaking, advice on writing. And let me give you my best of all piece of advice. And that is, don't let anything stop you. Just keep going. Um, there are so many things that could have stopped me from video work, from writing, from teaching, from leading groups. And I just did my best never to let them do that. There are certainly times that I did, but more often than not, I just kept going. And that's my advice to you in everything in life. But talking particularly about doing video presentations, getting your viewpoint out in the world. Um, and there's a certain extent to which I would say, if I can do it, you can do it. If other people you see on Pagan World TV can do it, you can do it too. It's not really a special talent. It's something you develop through practice. Some people have a greater aptitude towards it. Um, but um, it really is something you learn by doing. When I think of my first television interviews back in the 1980s, and I may have them here on videotape somewhere because I usually would ask for a videotape, and compare them to what I do today, they're pathetic by comparison. Um, but I went and I did them because I knew that I needed to for my career as a psychic, which is what those early videos were about. And it was kind of fun and exciting. But, to learn to speak like this took a lot more time. But you do it, you keep doing it, and you get better at it. And that's true with almost everything in the world. Um, Again, I want to emphasize, if you don't like the way things are portrayed in the world, don't like the way the pagan community is portrayed in the world, more if you feel there should be more female voices doing video, and you're female, become one. If you feel there should be more heathen voices doing video, and you're heathen, become one. If you want more ceremonial voices reaching out to that wider world, become one. Um, no one can do that for you. Um, they can interview you, they can talk about you, but they can't be who you are. And to represent who you are, only you can do that. And I would be so happy to see so many more people doing this. And I think that the increase in things like Zoom and video communication in general is going to make this a much bigger thing because people are learning to communicate through video who would have been much more frightened of it earlier in time. Ravenwolf says that they just block out the camera unless they're doing a ritual. And that is something you can do. There are a lot of things that you can do to advance how you do this. Um, but my thing for the community, and of course, not everybody really wants to be that head speaking on camera. But the more of us that are, the more accurate the world is going to see its view of our community being. And hello to Jason in the chat room. Good to see you, Jason. The more of us who are representing our community, the more accurate that representation will be because we have a wide and diverse community. Um, and no matter how impartial you try to be, you're always going to be coming at it from a certain point of view that will be different from other people's point of view. And that is perfectly fine. But the more people talking, the better off we're going to be. This is one of the things I like about Pagan Pride, because at Pagan Pride, there are so many different groups all talking, not only to our community, but to that wider community. And people can see, again, the diversity, the scope of our community. And I would love to see our various video outlets become that wide a scope as well. I think that and hello to Jess in the chat room. Jess says, will you be on again soon? I have an appointment. I'll be on again tomorrow. I'm on most days at noon, unless I'm unable to for some reason, in which case we usually will have a best of. And occasionally I also do other things, but every day at noon I will be here. I will certainly be here tomorrow. And I see with that we have reached the end of our half hour. I hope you found my comments interesting. And I want to thank you for joining me. I love you all. I love spending this time with you. And it really is one of the great pleasures of my life. I hope it's a pleasure for you as well. So let us close with our prayer as we normally do. And we shall go on with our day. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we ask you to help us to find acceptance in the world and to portray ourselves as we wish to be seen. Beloved ones, we ask you to open our lines of communication and to help us to show the world who we truly are, both in our private lives and also in the wider world and help to make it a more accepting, a more inclusive, more diverse world. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for this and all the things you do for us in our lives. And knowing you are always with us, yet from respect, we bid you hail and farewell. And I thank you for being with me today. And I'll hope to see you tomorrow. And until next time, may you be blessed in all things. And I will see you then.